All right, everybody. A couple days ago, I took a look at the Seahawks division rivals to see how things are going so far through their first 5 games. And now I want to take a little bit of time to take a look at some other teams the Seahawks are going to be competing with this year. And this is in the context of a wild card spot, because it's very possible we may end up hunting for a wild card spot. That's just, let's be real here. Even if you believe this team is as good as the Niners, even if you believe that as a Seahawks fan, that doesn't mean you're going to necessarily be able to win the division. And I think most of you guys are kind of aware of the fact that right now that team looks much better than us. So if we are competing for a wild card spot, what teams are we going to be competing with? Let's take a look at some of the top examples. First team we're going to look at here would be the Dallas Cowboys. I think they are the most obvious team in the NFC that is going to be in the wild card hunt along with the Seahawks. In fact, I think they're pretty much 1A and 1B. It's not really, well, actually, let me take that back. It's the perfect time to make a video about the Dallas Cowboys, right? After what transpired this last week. Yeah, this is actually a pretty dang good time to make a Cowboys video for me. So, everything about the Cowboys so far just seems kind of fine, right? You take a look at the Cowboys through 5 games, they're 3-2. That's fine. They're eighth in points scored. That's fine. They're seventh in points allowed. That's fine. Like, you look at Dak's numbers, that's fine. You look at Tony Pollard, that's like everything's just fine. There's nothing about this team that is really like great, it feels like, or really, really good. The things on this team that could be really good, like Micah Parsons, who I'll talk about in a little bit here, he's apparently got a leg injury now, and the way he looked against the 49ers, you have to wonder, are we going to get the full Micah Parsons experience this year? So even that's not great. Everything's just kind of like shrug your shoulders. Dak is completing a high percentage of his passes, but his numbers don't look so good all of a sudden after what the Niners did to him, and that may have been the worst game of his career. Pollard overall is not playing. He looks like he's lost a little something after the injury last year he suffered in the playoff game. CD Lamb looks good, but he doesn't look like he's ascending to like all pro levels. Brandon Cooks has been on a milk carton. Gallup still kind of looks like he's working his way back. He's we're coming up on 2 years removed from that massive injury he had, and we're not seeing a lot of positive signs that he's ever going to get back to what he was once upon a time. Like you look at this Cowboys offense, it's fine, but it's leaving a lot to be desired. So that's kind of just the overarching word I think right now with the Cowboys. They don't look quite as good as they were the last 2 years. Maybe they're about as good as they were the last 2 years, but everything's just kind of fine. And here's the thing. Here's the elephant in the room. They beaten the Giants. They beat the Jets, and they beaten the Patriots. Those are 3 teams. At least 2 of those teams are already kind of in tank mode. And the one team that isn't, the Jets, they were playing on a short week right after losing Aaron Rodgers for the season. So those are 3 sad wins, honestly. Those are 3 kind of like not energetic wins. And they even played another team that is theoretically in tank mode, and they actually got beat pretty bad. And I feel like the Sunday night game against the Niners was like a notification to everybody. This team is not that good. This Cowboys team is probably not even as good as they were the last 2 years. Last 2 years, they were able to play the Niners close. They were able to keep it competitive. They had games in the playoffs that came down to the last couple minutes. That game, it's like the Cowboys and Niners were playing 2 different sports. It was so lopsided. So, yeah, just looking at this team, everything about them is fine. Their offensive line isn't playing that well so far, but it's more or less gotten the job done, and they've had a lot of injuries up there. The thing is, some of the guys on that offensive line are just going to be perpetually injured, right? Tyron Smith is kind of in that phase of his career where you just hope he can play 9 games. They got a couple other guys on that offensive line. Zach Martin. Zach Martin is getting up there in age as well. He's somebody that you can't count on for anywhere close to 17 games. And I think even though that Niners defense is great, I can't take anything away from them on that front. You see what Dak is when he's not surrounded by amazing stuff. When everything around him is not going great, you see what Dak becomes. It's not anything particularly desirable. So I don't know if the kind of the wild card here for the Cowboys offense seems to me it would just be Brandon Cooks starts fitting into this offense and Michael Gallup gets back to form from before the injury. And the one thing to watch, this is the first year the Cowboys have let Mike McCarthy handle play calling. It's possible that it's just going to take a little bit of time for the offense to really get up to speed because they've had two bad games now, Arizona and, of course, the 49ers. And generally speaking, even in the games they've won, they have not been very good in the red zone. They don't look good in the red zone at all. Maybe McCarthy is just going to need some time to get this team to the point where he can actually have a really positive, a positive impact as a play caller over what they had in the last 2 years. The part of the Cowboys that we figured was going to be really dangerous was the defense. They were adding pieces on top of a defense that had been elite for 2 years, but it looks about the same. Like, they still got Leighton Vander Esch out there for almost every play, and to me, Leighton Vander Esch doesn't look that good. He's okay, I guess. Gilmore doesn't look as good as he was in previous years. Jaron Kearse, I don't know what's going on with Jaron Kearse. I don't think he looks good at all. I already talked about the Micah Parsons thing, and look, if Micah Parsons is hampered with an injury on top of the Diggs being out for the season, which we already know about, you can cancel it. Like, you can stick a fork in these Cowboys. They're not doing anything. And even the things that you took as a given from this defense, it's not happening. Like, their run defense wasn't that good, so they bring in Mozzie Smith, right? They draft Mozzie Smith and like, okay, he's going to fix our run defense. He doesn't play. I don't know if he's bad and they don't play him because they think he's a bad player, or if he's not ready, or what's going on. I don't know. Maybe the coaches are just dumb. But Mozzie Smith was like the most surefire elite run stuffer I've seen in the draft in a couple years. They draft him. It makes all the sense in the world. They would just put him in there, and he would be a have a great impact on this defense. It's not happening. He's not playing, and that Cowboys defense is still not great against the run. The Cardinals had many big running plays on them, and the 49ers ran pretty well on them a few days ago. So, honestly, this defense feels like it's regressed a little bit because of the Micah Parsons injury, and I don't know if that's going to get better this year or not. I know he's playing well. They've got Odigizua, who's playing well as well, but it's not the same defense that we thought we were getting this year at all, I don't think. And you look at their PFF grades, and I kind of feel the same. Everything's just kind of fine. You know, PFF-wise, Dak is fine. Pollard's fine. The receivers are fine. The offensive line, up and down, but overall, fine. The defense, they've got some really high-graded guys, don't get me wrong, but they've also got some big holes, so overall, you'd call it fine. It's just kind of they feel like they're in a little bit of a rut, right? This is their third straight year of being a good team that can't quite get to greatness, and feels like they're stuck in the rut a little bit because you look at their rookie class from last year, or this year, with guys like Mozzie Smith and the tight end they drafted, Schoonmaker, and it's basically they're not getting anything out of this rookie class so far. It's actually one of the worst rookie classes in the league, I think, to this point. Now, you got to give them time, but it's very surprising to me that Mozzie Smith can't get on the field for meaningful snaps. I think he's played like less than 100 snaps through 5 games. He's basically been an afterthought on this defense, and things like that don't allow you to become better. And here's the other kind of underrated storyline here. Let's take a look at the Cowboys' remaining schedule. Keep in mind that they've already lost 2 games. One of those games proved they're not an elite team. That 49ers game completely cut their cojones off in terms of them being an elite team. And that Cardinals game proved they can lose to anybody. Because if you lose to the Cardinals, anything's possible. That's still a bad team. I know they're not the worst team. That's a bad team. They've got the Chargers on the road next week. They've got 2 games against the Eagles. They've still got to play Seattle. They've got to play Philadelphia. They've got to play Buffalo. They've got to play Miami. They've got to play Detroit. I mean, look at this 5-game stretch. Seattle, Philly, at Buffalo, at Miami, Detroit. That could be 5 straight losses without the Cowboys even being that bad of a team. And even a team like the Rams, we've already seen the Rams are an average team. You could lose to them on the wrong day. So you start doing the math here, it's really easy to get to about 7 losses for this Cowboys team. Like, it's not even. That might even be a reasonable prediction at this point for them to lose about 7 games this year. They slip up a little bit and get to 8 or 9, they're out. I don't think that's enough wins for them to get to the playoffs at all. And I mean, even Washington's not good, but there are a couple of decent things about that team, and divisional games can be weird sometimes. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to lose to New York or Carolina. They're not, but honestly, you look at this schedule, it's brutal. This schedule could chew up and spit out the Cowboys very easily. So we're going to have to see how they can get through the November, December segment of this schedule. This is 5 straight brutal games where they could go 1-4 and still be like, I don't think we did anything that wrong. We just lost. So put it all together, and unless Mike McCarthy, I think that's really the key here. Mike McCarthy needs to uh, get it together. Mike McCarthy needs to figure out this play calling thing and get the offense to the next level because right now they're good, but they need to be great. This Cowboys team might sneak in and miss the playoffs here. They're not going to sneak in, they're going to sneak out. Like that is becoming a very realistic possibility here as I look at this. So right now, you have to take the Cowboys seriously as a wild card team because they made the playoffs 2 years in a row. Theoretically, they're a good team, but you look at this schedule, they will do well just to make the playoffs this year, I think. All right, I will see you guys later. Go Hawks. That's my rundown of another team that the Seahawks are going to be potentially competing with for a wild card team for a playoff spot. We'll do more later.